Do you have itching in the middle of your back or around your elbow on your forearm? If so, you may have notalgia paresthetica or brachioradial pruritus. Hi, I'm dermatologist and skin wellness expert Dr. Cynthia Bailey, and I've treated this condition for years. In fact, I've even got it myself, and so I've lived on the inside of it. This vexing itch is an itch that can't be scratched, and that's partly because the problem isn't actually on the skin. So when you look at the skin of someone with notalgia paresthetica or brachioradial pruritus, it often looks normal, especially in the early days. It's not until you start scratching the skin that you start seeing some abnormalities. When we biopsy the skin is entirely normal. And that's because the itch comes from nerve root compression upstream in the area of the spine that supplies the itching part of the skin. So these two conditions, notalgia paresthetica and brachioradial pruritus, are neuropathic itches, meaning they are an itch of nerve origin, also called neuropathic pruritus. Pruritus is a way to say itch. Notalgia paresthetica happens on the upper back, usually between the spine and one of the shoulder blades. And it typically happens from spinal degenerative disease and nerve root impingement in the thoracic spine. I'll find it on physical exam when I'm looking at one of my patients and I see a little brown discoloration up there. Often I see evidence that they've been scratching at it. And when I ask them, does your back itch? They say, oh yes, I have this terrible itch and it just can't be, I can't satisfy it. And they usually have a variety of interesting ways to scratch it, rubbing up against something rough in their house, or they ask their spouse or partner to scratch it. And what happens ultimately over time is the skin starts to hyperpigment, and that's what I can see on physical exam. When you have it here, it's called brachioradial pruritus, and the nerve root impingement is often happening in the cervical spine. Normally, when you think about a nerve root impingement, you're thinking about, ruptured disc, herniated disc, sciatic pain, with associated horrible discomfort, muscular weakness, numbness, etc. Well, this sort of nerve root impingement that causes these itch syndromes is much more subtle. It's not large nerve root impingement. It's nerve root impingement as the nerves exit the spine, often just because of some muscle spasm in the area. And the downstream part of the skin that nerve supplies has this vexing itch that's insatiable. Because again, there's nothing wrong with the skin. Scratching is distracting, but it's not going to actually get rid of the problem. Another really important point about these neuropathic itch syndromes is that the skin is hyperaesthetic, meaning extra sensitive. So the tiniest little bit of brushing with some rough clothing, or if your skin is dry and flaky and the dry little flakes are brushing up against your rough clothing, sort of like feathers tickling you, it sets off the cascade. And then there you are. The itch volume is turned up and you're now distracted by the itch that can't be scratched. So how do we help people with brachioradial pruritus and notalgia paresthetica? Well, first off, I tell my patients that when the skin gets hot, the itch is going to be worse. When the skin is cool, the itch will be less. So when they're going to exert themselves or be in a hot environment, expect to have a little more itch. If the itch volume is screaming like crazy, slap on an ice pack. The nerves are going to be so busy telling you that it's cold that the itch is actually going to be satiated briefly. In addition, we want to keep the skin from being flaky and scaly because, again, I told you those little flakes and scales are like tiny feathers, and every time something rubs against it or even a breeze rubs against it, it starts the whole cascade of itching. So you want to try to keep your skin well hydrated and not flaky and dry. And that's where skincare comes in. So my favorite way to address notalgia paresthetica and brachioradial pruritus with skincare is to exfoliate the heck out of the skin. And so I do that by having people use a rough shower cloth or shower sponge in the shower when they're washing their skin. And they put alpha hydroxy acid or other exfoliating body wash product on the cloth. And as the lady is demonstrating here, throw the cloth over the back and scrub to get all the flaky scale off and rinse off. And then when you get out of the shower, put another alpha hydroxy acid on the skin. The reason I'm mentioning alpha hydroxy acids is they're excellent at removing flaky, dry skin. They're called keratolytics, which means to bust up dead skin cells so that you're not flaky. In addition, they compact the dead skin cell layer so that it's kind of like polished and buffed with itself. So put on a glycolic acid body moisturizer or a lactic acid body moisturizer. And if you have notalgia paresthetica like I do, you have to put it on a back applicator if you can't reach, because you really need a good application of the stuff on your back. The added benefit of using an alpha hydroxy acid in this condition is it stings just a little bit, and that actually satiates the itch. It sort of stings so good. As a person who has this, I love the stinging of the alpha hydroxy acid on my notalgia paresthetica. When not using an alpha hydroxy acid, you want to moisturize anyways. So you can use just a plain non-alpha hydroxy acid containing body wash, again, on your exfoliating cloth, and then apply a plain moisturizer if you don't want to use the alpha hydroxy acid. Again, if it's on your back, you put the moisturizer on your back applicator and apply it to your back. If you're someone who has brachioradial pruritus, your itch is within your reach and you don't need the back applicator. One other really important point unique to brachioradial pruritus is that the sun can trigger the itch. And so sun protection is really important. I recommend to my patients who have brachioradial pruritus that they wear a sunscreen on their skin every day, and or even better yet, wear sun protective clothing to keep the sun off your skin. We don't know if it's the heat or the sun, but sun does trigger the itch cascade in brachioradial pruritus. So I hope you found this helpful if you're one of the people like me who suffer from notalgia paresthetica or brachioradial pruritus. If you found other things that help satisfy your itch or that have helped your skin itch less, I'd love to hear it in the comments section below. If you found this helpful, I love a thumbs up. If you know someone who suffers from this condition like I do, please share the video with them. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.